My name is Sean, and today we're just going to be creating some fan apparel designs with some of our mascot images. Just if you guys aren't familiar, we do have a lot of these vectors already created. I'll just show you really quick on our website. Under Shop and Designs, we have our artwork packs, and down about halfway down, you'll see two different types of mascot packs. So today we're going to be working from the Mascot Pack Volume 1, and these ones actually include some rhinestone designs as well. Um, so you get 18 bonus rhinestone designs with this pack. Most of them are going to be vector, and then we also have the Mascot Pack that's already magic cut for you. So if you're using any vinyls that will layer, these will be the designs, the pack that you want to get. But if you're doing like digital printing or sublimation or screen printing, anything like that, you can go ahead and use the Mascot Pack Volume 1. And that's the one we're going to be using for vectors today too. So you can still use part of the designs. They come with one colors as well, so you can use both of them. And this one includes the rhinestone too. So I brought each of these designs in, so you can see this is our rhinestone panther. Um, it's set up at 7.8 by about 7 point or just over 7 inches tall. So these can't be changed. The rhinestone files, once they're in there, you're not going to be able to edit the size, but any of the vectors we can actually edit. So um, you can see that it comes as a 2 or 3 color design, and then you'll get the 1 color design too. So depending on what you want for your design, you can use it either way. Now, these ones are not going to be magic traps or set up for layering. That's going to be the magic cut pack. So if you need files kind of already ready, you can do that. Or if you have the wizard yourself, you can convert these files to be able to layer them with any type of vinyl. So I'll show you that as well, and then we'll go ahead and create a couple designs. So the first one we'll do, we're just going to do a simple Panthers text. So I'm just going to write out Panthers. And if you guys have any questions or need to see anything again while we're going over anything, just let me know. So we'll just do a simple, let's go to our college fonts, and we'll do this college block. So just like this, we have our design. So if you want, you can either stretch it or make the height of the text larger by pulling on any of those boxes. So whatever you think looks best, you can use it that way. Alright, so the first thing we'll do is just kind of set it up, and I'm going to make this just a little bit smaller. Now it doesn't have to be exactly like how I have mine set up. And right now it's at 11 inches wide, but because it's a vector, it doesn't really matter right now. We can always make that or move it in and make it smaller. So we're going to add an island to the outside, and what I'm going to do is I pretty much just want an island around my panther. So if I go to my place and fill, we're going to do one island to the outside. We're going to leave the add stones just as it is. We're not going to click on it. And we'll do our contour. We'll start it at let's do 0.1 and see how that looks. And then everything else can stay the same. And we're just going to hit island fill. Right, so you'll see that island that it puts right around my design. So let me go ahead and change that color. So now we have our first island. And then I'm going to grab the island I just created and add another island to that. So just like that, now we have our original text and then 2 islands that we created right behind it. So then I'm going to just take my blue or teal island, hold shift, select the purple behind it, and then right up here I'm going to do a back minus front. So when I click that, it will subtract that out from the purple, and now I'll just have the purple outline. All right, so does everyone see how we got that? Does anyone have any questions about the islands? And if you don't like the way this looks, so if we zoom in here, these are going to be, this is going to be very small when we cut the vinyl. So if you don't want something like that, you can either remove it, or we can even make that section just a little bit larger by pulling up on the nodes. So if you want a little bit more of a thicker line through there, you can edit it by raising up the nodes. So we'll go ahead and keep on moving. So from here, I'm just going to group my entire text together. So I'm just going to highlight and hit Control G, and that's going to group my text for me. So otherwise, I can either highlight and right click, and you'll see if it's not grouped together, you'll see the group option there. So if I highlight, right click, you'll see group objects, and then the shortcut is Control G. So if you just hold Control and then hit G on your keyboard, you can also group in objects that way. All right. So once it's open, we're going to use the envelope tool to bend our text. So is everyone familiar with the envelope tool? All right, so a little bit, some experience with it. All right, so we'll kind of go over a little bit of the basics of it. We also have some webinars that are just on the envelope, so if you want to get a little more into it, we have some free webinars on the envelope as well. So to get to your envelope, let me close this out. Under Effects, you'll see the envelope, or Control F7 will also open up the envelope docker. So that's going to go ahead and open up on your right hand side. Now, once I select the object that I want to add an envelope to, and that's why I group this text together, because I want the envelope to go to affect both the text and the outline. So I group those together, and then I'm just going to hit Add New. And we're going to keep this single arc, so it's going to be this middle option right here. We're going to click that and hit Add New. And once I do that, it's going to be a little bit difficult to see on my screen, but you're going to see a blue box pop up around your text. Right? So it's going to have a little, it's going to be a blue dotted line, and then in the middle you'll see a couple blue boxes, and on the sides you'll see the blue boxes as well. So those boxes are what will help shape our text. So if I just pull up on the top box, you'll see how it can shape my text that way. If I pull on the bottom, you can see how it will shape it that way. Now, if you hold Control and lift up, it will lift the top and the bottom. If I hold Control and pull down, it will move the bottom or the top and bottom down. And then Shift will do the opposite. So if I go up, the top will come down. If I go down, the top will go up. So by holding Shift and Control, you can get even more looks using this envelope feature. So I'll make a couple envelopes real quick, and let me know which one you guys like the most, and then we'll go ahead and work with that. So originally, we'll go between either this one and the original one I had, which was just an arc like this. So do you guys like the left or the right side better? I think we're going to go ahead and use the right. Okay, yeah. So we'll go ahead and delete this out. And colors don't matter right now either. We're just we'll add to that as we go. So the next thing I want to add in my design, and I actually went a step before I actually add the envelope, I need to add something else. So with our software, we have this really nice split tool. So before I group this together, I'll have my original text on the inside. So we have our Panthers text here. So has anyone used this split tool before on the wizard? All right, so if you're working with sports apparel or anything like this, and you'll see it on a lot of shirts now. I think like the NFL had like a whole line of shirts that kind of look like this. So I'll show you the two examples. If you left click and then you can right click the split and get two different looks. So the first one will split the design up and down, right? So it'll do a vertical split right through the middle of your text. Now, if I right click the split, it will do a horizontal split right between our text. And the really nice part about it is that it overlaps the um, colors for you. So again, if you're layering this text, it did the work for you, so you don't have to sit there and worry or figure out how to overlap these these two colors. All right, so very simple. All we have to do, again, left click, and it will tell you down here on the wizard. So a left click will split vertically, a right click will split horizontally. All right, so we'll go ahead and proceed with this design here. And then once I have it split like this, I can just go ahead and hit Control G. Yeah, so someone asked if you can use glitter with the split, and yes, you can, because there's no black behind the blue except this little overlap, just this slight overlap right here. So that's not a, you can overlap just a little like that with the glitter and not have to worry about it. And that way, you know, if you messed up or anything like that, you wouldn't see any gaps. So the split feature is really a really useful tool and cuts out, you know, not only does it add a nice visual effect to your design, but it also layers it perfectly already. So there's no, you can use this with easy weed, you can use this with glitter, holographic, any type of vinyl, you can use this design or this split tool with. Right. So once we get here, we're just going to group it back together. So now it's just one object. And now I'm going to add that envelope. So I'm just going to hit add new, hold control, and just raise up the bottom just a little bit. So that's just going to give it a nice arc just like that. All right, so once we have that, we can just add our sport underneath. So does anyone have a sport, or doesn't have to be a sport, it can be band or any type of school program that they want to incorporate in our design? All right, so we got softball. Anything else? All right, we'll go ahead and use softball. So with this, I'm just gonna write our text again. So I'm just gonna write out softball, and I'm gonna add these little dashes on the side of it just because that's gonna look nice with our design. And then I'm just gonna find, if we want, we can stick with the college block so it matches, but that's, again, it's just all preference at this point. And then we're just gonna kind of fit that underneath. It doesn't have to go the whole width if you don't want it to. And then once we have that set up, we still have this all grouped together. So does anyone know how I can center both of these texts so I know it's lined up perfectly together? Yep, right on, Tasha. So if we highlight both of our texts and hit the letter P as in Paul on our keyboard, it will center that right to our page. So then I can just hold shift and raise up my Panthers. And now I know that this text is lined up perfectly underneath. Right, so that P tool is very useful when you're using text like this in creating designs. Right, so from here, we're going to go ahead and use this design here. Now again, it's going to come if you purchase the Mascot pack, or you can purchase the each vector individually. It will still come as a 2-pack like this. With the regular mascots, if you want to use the design that has color, so even this white is part of this design, it's not showing through, you would have to simplify or trap all of this design out to use as a 3-color if you wanted to use with glitter or something like that. If you wanted to use Easy Weed, you can go ahead and use any of these multicolor designs. Since we're going to go ahead and use, this is intended for vinyl, I'm going to go ahead and use just our vinyl, our simplified vector. But if we wanted to, we could use the tools on the wizard. Now each color is already welded together. So what I could do is either on our wizard, I can use a couple tools. They're both on our edit. So we have our knockout and our magic trap. Our knockout will add a little line in between. So let me put a background on this so we can see it. So a knockout will make it so whatever color the shirt is, it will show through that area. But now you can layer right on top. So again, we'll just take our white, select our black, and hit KO, and then you'll see that blue shirt showing through now. So whatever you think looks better, you can now use this design as a 3-color and layer it if you wanted to. So does anyone have any questions with the knockout and why we did that? All right, so this design, now we could layer it and use this in our design if we wanted to, but we're going to just go ahead and stick with our 1-color design. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to move all this over just a little bit and finish out our first design. So now it's really, I just want this design, this panther to kind of look like it's hanging off the side. Let's go ahead and change the color. Now you can see that it's behind my text, so to move it in front, I can just hit the F on the wizard, and it will move it in front of my text. So I'm just going to group all the text together. So this is one object, and then my panther is its own object as well. So we're going to almost do the same thing that we did to get this layer on the panther's text. We're just going to add one island to the outside. So you'll see that just throw an island around the design, and then we're going to hold shift on the outside island, and let me change that to this light green. So I'm going to grab the light green, hold shift, and select my text. And remember, it's all grouped together, so this is what I'm actually selecting. And then I'm just going to do a back minus front. So that happened. If that happens, let me go show you guys again. If you go ahead and do a back minus front and you get something like this, all that means is that this text is still, it's not converted to curves. So if we go ahead and just convert this all to curves, and we'll highlight it all together again. And let's convert everything, because the softball will have to be converted too. Then once it's all converted to a text or curves, it won't change once you create the design. So just like that, we were able to create, a unique panther softball, and you could do this with any sport. And if you don't like how it covered up the L, we can just easily slide that over just a little bit. Rotate the panther at all, any way we want to help this design look better, we could do that as well. So, and we can also make, if we didn't like it overlapping, we could make the softball text smaller, whatever you think looks better with your design. Yeah, so someone asked if you always convert your text to curve, and yes, when you're, before you send it to the vinyl, or before you cut it, you should always convert it to curves. Sometimes like I know with the GCC, you can't drag and drop into the GCC unless it's converted to curves. So some cutters will make you convert to curves. Some will just can still read it as a text. It'll still read the cut lines. But you probably want to get in the habit of converting your text to curves. And what that also does too is if you create a design like this and leave it in a text form and you send it to a client or another computer, maybe you work at home and your office, um, and one of those computers doesn't have the font you used, it won't recognize that font and try to change it to the closest font in your library that matches it. So it could totally alter the design. So once you convert that to curves, you don't necessarily have to have the text, and it won't automatically look for a text to change it to. So there's a couple benefits of converting it to a curve. So again, once we have that set, I can just hold shift and do a back minus front. And now we have our design, and now we can just kind of do the color scheme of whatever we want, whatever the school colors are. We could go ahead and just use those school colors. And now we have our nice Panthers design. And anything like this that kind of, we put this over here. If you don't like or don't want any of that in his paw, you can just double click the nodes and delete that out. So this little cut here, if you think it just looks better with nothing there, you can delete that out so you don't have a little tiny cut. All right. So the next design is going to be pretty similar. We're just going to use a couple different tools, but the overall design is going to be pretty similar. This time, when we create the design, we're just going to write out Panthers again. And we'll use the same college block font. Now, with this design, what we're going to do instead is I'm going to open up my fonts window on the wizard, and I'm going to hit this break artistic text. So the letter B on your font, I'm just going to hit that. And then you'll see that it breaks each one of these letters individually. They're each still technically a font. They're in font form. So if I wanted to, I could change this to an E and then continue typing out. I don't want to do that, but it will break out each letter. So then what I'll do is I'm going to grab the P and the S, and at the same time, I'm going to hold shift and just drag out from the corner. And the reason I'm grabbing them at the same time is just so I know that they're the same size. And then I'm just going to slowly pull those, just hold shift and move those back close to the design. All right. And if you want, you could always make the letters larger. So if you want it even more dramatic, you can increase the size of each letter. And if you don't like to do it that way, you can also change it here. So if we wanted them both 3.5 inches, you could change it manually up here and just make them all the same height, and you can set it up that way too. So there's a couple ways to set this part up. You just definitely want to make sure that the S and the P are the same size. So we're pretty much going to do the same thing again. So we're just going to highlight our design and group it together. And then we're going to add our islands to the outside. So first island there, we'll just click island again. And then I'm just going to take our first island we made, hold shift, select the second one, and do a back minus front. And that just gives us a nice little island around the outside. Right, so this is what I'm working with now. So again, if this is too small to work with, you can edit manually. Or what we can do is if we make our first island a little bit smaller, so if we go to 0.07, do an island fill, and then we go to 0.15 and do an island fill, that will allow more room in between all those letters. So we have our design like this. And now we're just going to go ahead and add our envelope to it again. So I'm just going to make sure it's all grouped together. And then I'm going to go to my envelopes. Let me drag that down, hit add new. And pretty much the same thing, just hold control and lift up just a little bit. So that's going to give it a nice arc. You can go higher or a bigger arc if you want, but sometimes the way it stretches the design, it just ends up not looking as good. So let's go just a little more, and we'll go right about there. All right, so now I can ungroup, and since I'm here already, I might as well just convert my text to curves. So Control Q, or right click and convert to curves. All right. So you'll see that each one of these letters is still individual. So I'm going to go ahead and hold Shift, click on each of the inside letters, and just weld those together. And that way this reads as one object now. So now we're going to do the same thing with the first text as how we did the split, but this time we're going to add 2 splits to get a different look with our design. So when I add the vertical split to this design, if I right click, and again, I don't want the outside to be split. I just want just the inside text. So if you have it grouped together, it's gonna split everything. So you'll want to ungroup and then just select the text, and then we're gonna do a right click. So what this does is it finds the center of the top point of the highest point of this text and the bottom point. So when I click on this, sometimes it doesn't always look like it's centered. But because it's so far down here, it matches the highest point on the black. So sometimes if you bend the text first, it's not always going to have the desired look you want. But in this case, this is kind of what I wanted. And now all I'm going to do is select our black on the top, and we're going to right click that again. So I hit the right click on the split. Now it split this black in half again. So let's change that to the blue. So now we have actually a 3-color design if we wanted to. However, I'm going to change the bottom back to black, weld those 2 together. So now these are all 1. And now I just have this top portion as my second color. All right, so that was a couple steps in there. Did everyone follow with that, or do you guys need to see it again? Yeah, so let me go ahead. I'll show you guys one more time. So what we did is once we had this, our text curved with the envelope, we're just going to select the inside of our text, right click the split, then it's going to split our design. Yeah, so someone asked if we did the envelope first and then hit the split, you'll get a different look. So yeah, let me go back just even a couple extra steps just to kind of exactly what you were just asking. So if I were to keep the design here, let me weld these together real quick. And I'll make a copy down here. So this one, I'll add the envelope and then we'll split it. And on the top one, we're just going to split it. So here we'll grab our inside text, right click, and it looks perfectly down the center. This one, because it has an envelope to it, if I right click, it is in the center. The highest, or the distance between the P and the top and this part here, matches the H and the top of its highest point. So that's how these splits will work. It will take the highest point and then split it in half. So if we were to measure from the H where the black meets to the top of it, it would be the same height as this P to the bottom corner of that P. So you can see how if you don't, if you add the split in different times, you'll get different looks. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and take this top portion of the black and just split that again. So I'm just gonna right click, and now I can change that to another color. And because it's these splits overlap, if you don't like the way it looks, or you wanted, something like we just created, if I hold shift, and so I have just the teal and black selected now, and weld those back together, it goes back together like we never even split it. So now we just have this nice, second color just coming through the top of our design here. And if you like the way this one looks, you can always split that one in half again here, and you'll have the look like that. And now it's weird on the end that it did that. But now if I wanted to, I could add an envelope, shape it, and you can see the different types of how when you add the split, you can get totally different looks with your design. So do you guys like the top or the bottom one better? All right, bottom clearly the winner. All right, so we'll go ahead and proceed with the bottom. So now we're just gonna use our panther here. So same thing, we're just gonna go ahead and use the one color, but I'll show you how we can even do it with the three color. So because these are all different layers, and let me change my text here just to a different color so we can see it a little bit better. So right now I grouped together all three of these colors. Yeah, so this adds like a gradient. Yeah, so someone mentioned it. It's almost like a gradient effect with vinyl by using these splits. So, with screen printing and stuff like that, you can really get the gradient fills, but something like this, you could really get a different look. And, I've even experimented with it a little bit. You can break these as many times as you want. So if you really wanted to, um, you can have different looks. So if you wanted to go from like, let's do, let me see if I can find it. So maybe if we started at a light orange and then went to an orange, we can split that into light cyan, into a red, into a darker red. You can get a lot of different effects with these fonts. Okay, but the thing is, keep in mind that yeah, this looks pretty cool, but now it's a 5-color design, so it does take a little more pressing, but you can definitely get a nice look by using these different splits. Right, so we'll just leave it like that for now and just go ahead and continue like that. So I just went ahead and grouped all those together. So now this is grouped as one, and my panther is grouped as one too. So now I'm just going to use the same feature, highlight those, hit my letter P on my keyboard, and that's just going to center this for me real quick. And then I'm just going to pull that down and move to the front. So now we have a nice looking design, and all we have to do is add an outline. Let's go a little bit less. Island fill. It's going to put it just outside my panther. Hold shift, select my text, and back minus front. So that just cuts it out perfectly. So if I had this on, a blue shirt, you would see the blue shirt in between those areas now. Okay. So the last thing we're going to do is just add our generic athletics. So this could be just, it doesn't make it specific to any sport. And I'll go ahead and add the little sides to this as well. So this time what we're going to do instead is we're going to use our edit, and we're going to go to our text spacing tool, and I'm just going to increase the spacing between my letters. So instead of stretching it out, this will just add space between each letter and increase the width at the same time. So it doesn't do anything to the height. All it does is just put space in between each letter. So once that looks good, I can go ahead and change that or move that to wherever I want. And I'm just going to draw, I'm going to make this a little bit tinier. And if you like, there's actually an Arial, the black, which makes it a little bit thicker. So if you like that too, you can go ahead and use that. And if you want to make sure, I'm just going to group my panther and this whole top design together, hold shift, hit my letter P on my keyboard just to make sure everything's centered. So that will center my athletics, and then I can just bring that down. And I'm actually going to bring that in just a little bit. And then I'm going to draw a rectangle box just around it. And again, I'm just going to center those two objects to make sure that they're centered together. And then I'm going to do a back minus front. My text is behind it, so we can just do an opposite and do a front minus back. And that's just going to cut those letters out for me right in my design. And if I want to as well, we have this nice shaping tool on the side. On Apparel, you have your shape tool, and it'll give you 4 boxes on your corner. And if I bring those in, it'll just round out those corners for me. So it's not like a solid square. It has nice, smooth edges to it. And then same thing, change the color. And now we have our design. And if we want, we can just make sure it's all centered, hit P, and then I can just drag my athletics down, and I have this really neat looking Panthers athletics. Right. So if you're working like with sublimation or stuff like that, this would be perfect because you don't have to actually weed out and layer all those different text or colors. But if not, you can still obviously do it, but this would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we could arrange it so maybe it matched the panther. So instead, if we did this with a black outline, we could save a color there, and we could even we could eliminate some of this from the panther if we wanted to, just to make it a little bit easier, because it's already going to be a 5 or 6 color press. So why add more colors, So we can just subtract all that out, make that a 1 color, and then we have our design a little bit easier for us. So does anyone have any questions about the Panthers design that we just created, or any of the features we used? All right. So the next one's pretty easy. We're gonna kind of use a lot of the features we used. A lot of it's today is using the envelope. And thank you for the comment on the design. So with this one, it's going to become as is. So you can obviously edit any of these stones. So if you wanted the eye or something a little bit bigger, you could delete any stones out that you didn't want. Or if you wanted to change the look of anything, you could delete stones out. But you can't we can't just make this smaller or anything like that without actually changing the stone size. So this design, most of these are going to come set up, so it's a nice design ready for a shirt. It's almost 8 inches wide by 7 inches tall, so it can fit on a lot of shirts already, and we can also add stuff to it if we wanted to. So with this, we're just going to use a rhinestone font, and we're going to use TRW 200 college or collegiate 2-inch. So we have a couple different 200, so it's going to be TRW 200 collegiate 2-inch. So I'm just going to write out Panthers. And I'm just going to select my text. Now you can see here, if you guys are new to the text, our rhinestone text, I just typed out in all capital letters. When I have my font selected on the right, what I want to use, I look at the font preview, I don't see anything upper, I just see lower. It just says lower. So that what this is telling me is that I need to put this in lowercase, all lowercase letters. Otherwise, when I go and click my text, so you can see all lowercase, it comes out perfect. All uppercase, you don't see anything, it disappears. So if you don't have an uppercase or you don't have a lowercase, that means that whatever it says, upper or lower, you're going to have to type in that text. So some will be the opposite, some will have upper and lower, some will be a two-color font, so it will have an inside and outside. So each one's going to show you. So this is the upper and this is the lower. So when I type in lowercase, it gives me the outside. When I type in uppercase, it gives me the inside fill. So just know how these fonts work. So we'll go back to our 200 collegiate 2-inch and I'll use this one here. So once we have this set up, this font, the letters are a little bit close together with the N, T, H, E, and the R, E, R. So I'm just going to click on this, and same thing, I can just hit my text spacing, and those will just space out a little in between there, just so it looks a little bit cleaner. So I'm going to go ahead and hit resize to 0.13, and it will ask me, would you like to replace all? Just hit yes. That one didn't change size too much, but now you'll see that they're all at 0.13 circles, and I can place this font above or wherever I want. Now, we're going to add an envelope to our Panthers text here. Now, it's not a text anymore because once we resize it, it's not going to read as a text anymore. Each one of these stones are individual, so you can't go back and edit your text at this point. So what we're going to do is just group all of our letters together. And now you'll see that you can add a new envelope. Now rhinestones are very tricky to add envelopes to. I specifically chose this text because each of these stones are spaced out a little bit in between, which allows for us to add an envelope. If you took a rhinestone font that was very close together or very blocky, it's not going to work as well. So, and I'll show you an example using this font as well. So I'm going to just add a very big curve. Now when I do that, you'll notice right away that these are no longer perfect circles. So to change that back, I'm just going to ungroup, and then I'm going to hit, so the first time I resize, this time I'm going to replace all stones with SS10s. So once I do that, now they're all back to perfect circles. However, since we arced it, you can see that some of these circles are a little wonky now. They're going to be overlapping. They're not going to be perfectly straight, especially the ends. So the text in the middle, you can see the T and the H, I almost don't have to edit at all. Even the N, a little bit maybe down here. The E is pretty good. But once we get into the R and the S, you can really see how these envelopes can affect the text. So when you're working with some other text, even the smallest curve can really throw some of these stones off. So from this point, you'd have to manually go around and move all these stones to make it look like some sort of S again. So with our design, we're obviously just not going to arch it that much. So we can still do the same thing. We'll add an envelope, and instead we'll just do a nice little arc like this. So you can see the stones are going to change even with the slightest envelope, but they're not as bad as what we have over here. So it still adds a nice little arc over a design. So I'll ungroup and resize or replace all now. And even with that little arc, there's not too much editing we're going to have to do with this design. So that's because I picked this font because I knew I could do this with it. So if you do choose a different font, know that you're going to have to spend a little bit more time editing some of these corners. So if I wanted to, I could maybe even add a little bit bigger of an envelope, and then I'll ungroup, replace all, and now you can start to see just with that little extra, some of these are going to need a little bit editing now. So some might be overlapping, and one way to help with this to find out what stones are overlapping, because it is difficult to, especially when you're new to rhinestone, to kind of see what's overlapping without spending too much time designing. So if I just highlight my design and I use one of these mark top or bottom overlaps, this will just mark the ones that are overlapping, so then I can come in here, fix it. I don't need to delete them. I just need to fix them. So I'll go ahead and just move those up. Now I know none of my stones are overlapping. And if you're really uncertain, you can increase the overlapping by right clicking. So if I added 0.02 and did the same thing, we're going to get probably a few more that are lighting up because they're close. So you can do that as well. And if you think you need to move those, you can edit those too. And something like this, we can just use our Resize tool. So I'm going to hold Shift, select one stone, and then select the rest of the stones in that line. Hit my Resize on the wizard, and that will clean up areas like that. So once I'm done, once I see everything's back to, once I edit it, I can just go ahead, clear out any paths that I made, and change them all back to black. So that's how we can edit text like this and give it the rhinestones a nice little bend without spending too much time. So let's go ahead and move that. We'll group that together. I'll group my head together and go ahead and center that. So now we have our main template created. So if we're working with the Panther school, we have this. We could create as one template, or if we wanted, the two different colors, we could make it a two-color design. And now we can just add whatever sport, club, whatever we're working with underneath. So I know someone mentioned basketball earlier. So now I can just type out basketball, use our 200, go to lowercase, don't forget about the lowercase, hit resize, yes, and boom, our basketball set up just like that. Okay. So this is a 13-inch, so that is a little bit big for rhinestone. So with our basketball text, we might have to just switch that to 6s, and that part of our design will have to work with 6s, just so it fits on a normal size t-shirt. Right? But if we're working with like maybe band or soccer or something like that, that's not actually that large, what we can do is the same thing we did with the athletics down here. So let's go back here. We can change this to band, resize to SS10. So now when I put this here, you can see that it looks pretty small. Oh, I'll center it all up. So we have our Panthers on top and then our band on the bottom. So that might look a little bit off. So what we could do is instead we'll write out band again, change it, and then use my text spacing. And I just resize it so I can see a little better. And now I can just use my text spacing to add a little bit space in between, resize, yes. And now if I have it like this, and what I can also do too is just drag two of these stones over here, make my little lines, and do the same thing on that side. Center everything up. And now I can add whatever sport, band, club I want to my Panthers design. You don't always have to bend it. If you like the way it just looks, simple at the bottom, we can go ahead and stick with that. If you wanted to, you could add another envelope going the opposite way, whatever you think looks better. But again, you could make this a one color design, create a pre-cut template with it. So let's bring this to a new page. Create my template. Make sure all these are SS10s. Right, so now we have our template made, and then I could add, if I printed out if I cut out all the letters of the alphabet, I could just space those and create anything I want underneath it. So does anyone have any questions about the last rhinestone design we made? Does anyone like to see anything again? Well, you guys have been great. Thank you for all the questions. That's going to pretty much wrap up our webinar today. Again, my name was Sean.